out of, also invite you to turn off your camera and participate with us in that way. And we will be recording as well. So the recording will live in the Mystic Society portal. But for the first time, we're also going to send out the recording to non-society members. This is the very first time that Richard has been in an online platform. Richard has been my mentor and become a friend, and we have journeyed together for, I believe, over a decade now. But this is the first time I've been able to kind of call him into this online space. So I'm really excited and honored to have him here today and to be sharing his work with you. And that's part of why we're going to be sharing the recording more broadly than we have maybe in the past. So I want to welcome Richard in just a moment, give him a chance to introduce himself. But in true Mystic Society fashion, I want to take just a moment to bring our hearts and minds together. And today we're going to do that through a really simple gratitude. So I'd like to invite you into your body, into your breath, whether that's placing a hand on your thigh or your heart or your tummy, whether it's just bringing your awareness into your conscious breath. I think the thing that's coming to mind for me, and so I'll kick off our gratitude with, is that I had the opportunity this morning to watch a beautiful bevy of birds harvesting almonds from our almond tree. And it was incredible to see their system and their process while dropping the almonds down to the ground and then collecting them and taking them off to wherever they were storing them. And not only just the system and the process and the teamwork, but the joy with which they were doing it, singing and talking and squawking and generally making very light work of the harvesting of this tree. So I have tremendous gratitude today for all that that brought for me, the moments of being in nature, the connection to Mother Earth, the reminder of the good magic and teamwork, but also the reminder to bring in the fun and the lightness into the work that we do. So if you will join me in that gratitude and maybe send your own gratitude for a moment you've had today or a feeling that might be alive and present for you, I would love to join those together in our oneness of mind and welcome you all to the July Mystic Society Salon. So this is a new format. As you may notice, that we're using Zoom for the salons now. This is what we use for our breakouts and our mastermind calls, and it just feels a little bit more like home. And so we're going to be using this platform for the salons. I'm not going to be doing any slides at all today because I really want to jump right into the conversation with Richard. As I mentioned, this is a first, and although he says there may be more, and we're talking about a course offering after this, I have this feeling that he's going to want to test the waters of this online platform. So thank you again, Richard, so much for joining us. I'll tell a little bit about my story of how I came to find you, but then maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit and tell us how you came to be doing the work that you're doing. Does that sound good? Awesome. Everybody here okay? Those of you on camera, maybe if you give me a thumbs up, and yeah, I'm getting a nod. Okay, great. Okay. So the honest to God story, guys, is that around the time of Cricket's birth, you know, many of you know that I had health challenges with Lyme and autoimmune and other things, and I was having a real up and down at that point where I felt like I had the health issues under control. We had not yet been diagnosed with Lyme disease. I was spending a ton of time in nature, which I think helped a lot, bare feet in cold water almost every day, walking through creeks or going to the ocean. So I was feeling pretty good. But energetically and emotionally, I was having pretty extreme cycles of anxiety and overwhelm, which made no sense to me because I had already contracted away from all the things that I thought were scary or intense or overwhelming about modern life. I had left my corporate job. I had left the city. I had moved to the country. I had moved to a family homestead and was living very close to the earth. I was a part of a deeply connected nature connection community. And so it didn't make sense to me why I was still experiencing this extreme social anxiety and anxiety in general. And I remember it was around the holidays, if you remember this the same way, Richard, and I was having this crushing just awareness that I wanted nothing to do with the holidays. I didn't want to see my family. I didn't want to go to the events at my kids' community school. I felt like I had to keep taking steps back in order to protect my energy and my health. And what was getting really clear to me was there weren't too many more steps I could take before I was all alone on the top of my hill and not functioning in the modern world. And I knew that there had to be something else out there. Richard runs a martial arts studio and does energy work and private healings one-on-one here on the Central Coast, and had a son who was several years older than my son at the little nature school that they go to. And so I had heard about Richard and met him in kind of social circles, but it was super edgy for me at that point to think about stepping into someone's space and saying, I know that it looks like that I've done all the right things in terms of, making life choices and aligning to my path and purpose, but actually on the inside, I still feel like I'm falling apart. It was super, super edgy. But one day the discomfort of, and Candace, can you just message to let me know that you are in fact recording? I know that that was the intention, but I can record on my end if need be. So it was super edgy, and the discomfort eventually became too great. The fear of disengaging completely from family and social circles was extreme. And I finally walked through that door, and I remember sitting down on a little folding chair and just kind of spilling the beans, feeling like I was broken, that even though I had taken these radical and drastic steps, that I was still too sensitive or too social phobic, to all of these things. And as he held space for me to tell my story and then began to ask me questions, what he helped me realize was that I had been misinterpreting my own sensitivity, that I had perhaps been not fully honoring how my instincts to contract from big energetic situations were because I didn't actually have the tools that I needed or that would serve me best in navigating those scenes, situations, and experiences in a way that could feel connective. And more than that, it wasn't even a glimmer in my eye at that point that what would actually happen was an activation of my inner intuitive skills, an ability to actually thrive and feel really good about social settings, and then ultimately to bring those energetic, intuitive, and light work gifts forward in my story in the world. So that's where my journey with Richard began. It started very small. I had a lot of healing to do. I had a lot of story to release and a lot of permissions to claim around what it would look like to fully activate my intuitive gifts. It led to me doing a full year mentorship in person with Richard and a small group of other women that then continued into an apprenticeship that really continues to this day. I feel so blessed to, at this point, consider Richard a friend and also an uncle to my children. And I'm so grateful that he was willing to dip a toe and come into my world, this virtual space, and share some of the teachings that he shared with me along the way. So I want to welcome you with gratitude today, Richard.
Thank you so much. You know how I get when you answer anyway. So a little bit about me, as Lindsay said, I teach martial arts and I teach energy work, which sounds like a total contradiction, but in China, these things were very, very much together and fed off of one another. So my initial training was in the context of Chinese martial arts and Qigong, which means energy work, energy skill. I did that for years. About 12 years into it, then I actually trained with a Chinese master who was the sort of martial artists you might see in movies who can poke you with a finger and turn you off. because he was an acupuncturist and he was an herbalist. And so, again, all of these things were the same thing because we're talking about energy. You may not think about it this way, but, in a martial art, you punch someone, well, you're putting energy in there, right? Physical energy and other energies too. So it all goes together. And then after he passed away, he was 85 when I first started training with him. I ran into another instructor who was trained at the Berkeley Psychic Institute and had a background in Wicca. And it was sort of like two freight trains crashing into each other at first because these two very different approaches to doing exactly the same thing, which I came to realize, which was a big opener for me. And it actually sort of shut me down for a couple years because I trained with her for 6 or 8 years or so. So I had an intensive background on both sides, but then finally there was the clash where, okay, this side says do it like this and this side does it like that. How can these possibly coexist? And it finally, like I said, I took a year off and I didn't teach anyone. And if there was a cave I could find, I would have crawled into it. But it finally occurs to me that obviously these things are not conflicting because here I am doing them all. And that was the eye-opener, that it's how you look at it depends on what you do with it. And I was the intersection of those things. That's how they work together because I do them.
Right.
So it just kind of went from there. I didn't really intend to do these things for 40 years, and I didn't intend to really teach them. I started doing them and I never stopped, and I still haven't. So here we are. Yeah.
So part of what I was so excited to do today was to have this conversation about how understanding and mastering your personal energetics influences the things that we talk about in the Mystic Society. So that's money, magic, meaning in your life. And you over the course of my training and mentorship with you, have introduced me to many tools. But talking about sensitivity and talking about permission seems like one of the best places to start because it seems like a common thread, not only for myself, but for a lot of the people who find their way into the Mystic Society or even on a broader level who consider themselves soulful entrepreneurs or conscious parents. Like all of this has something to do with being sensitive and wanting to be conscious, doing things differently, which means whether they have the vocabulary or not, they're experiencing energy in a way that they don't necessarily know how to understand it, what to call it, and what to do with it. What are your thoughts around that sensitivity question?
It's one of those double-edged sword things because we all get into this sort of thing because we want to know. We want to know more. We want to be more sensitive. But when you get more sensitive, now you know too much.
Yeah.
Possibly, yes. So it's too much information. One of the things that is a problem, since Lindsay talked about her own experience, lack of information was not her problem. It was a context for the information. How do I sort this out? And how do I get this into a form that I can understand and then act on out into the world? And that's both of my learning practices were very much into a foundational practice. But look, you do this and it creates a structure. It creates a matrix that lets you handle the information you're getting. So as I am now, even though chakras are not really a Chinese thing, the Chinese have points and they have meridians and they have dantians, which are energy centers, and the chakras come to us from India more. And I was learned it both ways, and now I tend to use chakras more as a context for things, that this information is coming into me. How? Is this an emotional message? Is this a knowing? Is this a intuitive? Is this a knowledge? Is this a heart-based thing? So it helps organize this huge blast that every human being walking around is a huge blast of information. And I went through a spot a few years before I met Lindsay where I was going a little bit nuts because it was just too much information all the time, where I'd spent years saying, I want to know. If there's a box, I want to see what's in it. If I'm in a box, I want to get out of it. And it all of a sudden became like too much for me, that, wait a minute, I don't need to know everything that's going on right now. And that was another reboot for me.
Yeah.
And I guess that's something that you all have noticed, is that there are plateaus, and you get what you said you wanted, and then it turns out you asked the wrong question. And now you know the right question, and you ask that and you get an answer, and then you find out, oh wait, I have another question now. And so it really is a practice. It isn't a goal. It's a lifestyle that you get into, and it just continues to roll.
I love that. And just to piggyback on that, I'm thinking back to just really recently, even in the last year, when I started to have mediumship experiences, and you were so great at reminding me what that felt like in the beginning, to have these layers opening, or these awarenesses opening, but that we have choice and we have control over how much we see, and what type of engagement that we want to have with our ability to see. So, how did you do that as you decided it was too much information? Was it about creating new filters, or?
Gosh, it was, I hate to use the word maturity.
Yeah.
Because, gosh, I don't want to admit to that, but I think I got to a point where I realized there was a underlaying of insecurity that required me to want to know more and more and more, so that I could make better judgments and better choices, because choice is the thing that humans do, and it's the things that separate humans from virtually every other being around, is that we have free will and we get to act on it, and we can be as smart or as stupid as we decide we're going to be, and nobody says no. They go for it. So I think I just realized, whatever happens, I'll deal with it when it happens. And what is going on with Lindsay? You like to think about circles, and we have the immediate circle of ourself, and then we have family, and then we have friends, and then we have community. Well, you shared that with me and helped me put this into context, that, gosh, I need to know what's going on in here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is mine and this is me. Family, absolutely. Friends, for sure. Community, yeah. Out there, well, I don't need to know that much out there. Let's wait till it comes in a couple circles. And I don't think it was a change in skills, or, it wasn't a filter. It was just, gosh, I don't need to know everything. That much. Yeah, I don't need to know everything.
Yeah. And that fits in with the permissions piece. You trained me quite a bit on the side of permissions of the information coming towards me, but also I really want to touch on today the permissions that we grant ourselves about ourselves. I know almost everybody on this call, and I know that everyone on this call is connected and wise and intuitive. And yet I hear over and over again, well, that's something else to be intuitive. Like, I'm not a psychic, or I'm not a this, or I'm not a that. That's something else. Or I don't see, or I really wish I could be connected to my guides, or I wish I could be connected to my intuition. And so when we began that kind of piece of my story, here I was landing in your center saying, I'm feeling too much. Oh, but I'm not any of those things. And you had to take those next steps of helping me navigate exactly who I was, with exactly what kinds of gifts I had, and really understand what those look like. Tell us a little bit about those permissions and how you help people navigate that. Because, you say this thing everyone can see.
Yeah, and everyone does. Yeah. It's a matter of if you are using that information effectively. So huge can of worms here. But we all, reality is going on, right? And there's a buzzword in the New Age community about learn to create your own reality. And the fact is you do create your own reality and you're not realizing it.
Right.
And the way we do that, the two factors are permission and perception. Okay, I kind of have boiled it down to this. Permission is everything you allow yourself and everything you are allowed by those circles we were talking about, yourself, your family, your friends, your community. Okay, permission lets you do, right? Perception is how you perceive things. How you see it is going to change how you work with it. I mentioned a while ago the difference between chakras and dantians. Okay, and if you are looking at the energetic structure in the context of meridians and dantians, there's going to be particular things you can do with that, right? And if you look at it in the context of chakras, there's particular things you can do about it. So reality changes even though you're looking at the same thing. Okay, right. So what I do and how I do what I do is I get people to play with that perception and permission thing. And you're right. If I teach a class that is, if I call it meditation class, which actually is what my dad calls what I do.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is. And I have friends that call what I do that mojo thing you do. So they found a comfortable word, and I don't know what it means to them.
Right.
And because I honestly don't think they have any idea what I do. And but it's okay. They don't have to know exactly what it is. They found a way to be comfortable with it, right?
Right.
So I've had students that I have to be very careful if I use the wrong word. If I say something like, you are being psychic right now.
Right.
Whoa, that's it. The wall goes up. Because they do not have any permission to be a psychic because who knows why. There could be, there's a million reasons. But if I say, as you know, we started out when we started looking at energy. Yeah. We did that in a way that I didn't talk about looking at energy. I talked about looking at just an aspect of yourself and playing with it like this. And before you know it, you're working with energy before anyone has ever said that's what we were doing. And I think you've called that coyote teaching, and I wouldn't go that far. I'm not totally tricking people, but you have to be careful how you package things. And even in business, you know that better than me. That marketing and packaging is the thing. And this is this, and it's.
I've never really thought of it through the context of permissions, though. That's so interesting. That's a great side note for the marketing conversations. But yeah, it makes total sense.
Well, and see what just happened there is the way you looked at it changed. So now you have permission to play with it changed. All right, so that's how the whole world goes on. Yeah. And if you can play with those things, and most of the tools I teach have to do with one way or another shifting one or both of those things. And they chase each other's tail, too. So if you change one a little bit, the other one has got to shift a little bit, too.
Absolutely.
And we do that in consciously energetic ways, because every time you go to the library and read a book about how to cook quiche, well, you're changing your knowledge base. You're changing the way you perceive quiche, and now your permission to experience quiche is different, right? So it happens whether you want to put an energetic tag on it or not. Yeah. Yeah.
So this thing about seeing, I remember one of the profound things about, working one-on-one was very profound, but also you very deliberately run your year class as a group. And part of what was so powerful about that is seeing that we're all different, seeing that although we may all have the same story, like I'm not a psychic or I'm not really an intuitive, but maybe I feel all that story stuff, that once we started to get into the exercises themselves, we were experiencing them completely different. There were feelers, there were seers, there were people who heard things. Tell me a little bit about how you help people move through that piece of understanding that they've been doing it all along without understanding what they were doing.
Sure. The word seeing is a little just not correct. We should use the word perceiving.
Right.
Because seeing, if you want to be literal, seeing is what we do out of our physical eyes. And most of our energetic perception is not through these, it's through chakras. And we see through our third eye, and we even will call it the third eye to make sure we know that's what we're doing. But the trick is, even if you have people who will admit to clairvoyance, which means clear seeing, and so they're all there saying, yes, we see energy. You put them in the same room and have them look at a person. They will not see the same thing because we see through our own interpretation, our own experience, our own filters, if we want to call them that. But then if you ask them what meaning they get from what they see, that's where then agreement starts happening. And that's yet another eye-opener for everyone is, wait a minute, no.
Totally.
And it's something like, what color is his energy right now? And his energy is bright blue. And someone else says, well, no, I don't see it bright blue. I see it this sea green color. And someone else says, no, it's peach color. And then you go, well, what does that mean, though? What is that energy telling you? And everybody agrees that, oh, this person's actually in a very energetic space and he's light. And so this is where, you've heard me talk about books that say when you see this color, it means this. And I say, good starting point. And then find out if it means that to you. And so part of the trick is to discover your own language that you speak to yourself, that your spiritual part is conveying to your physical part.
Totally.
The skills, the tools are really easy to learn. They, one builds on another. They're easy, but it's a practice. Remember, so you learn it in 3 minutes, but the more you do it and the longer you do it, the better you get at it, and the deeper it becomes. Which is the reason I'm still doing this for so long, is because every time I do it, it's different and it's new, and you learn new things, and you think you're going to go look at that same old thing you always looked at, and it's not the same old thing, and it may never have been that same old thing you were looking at. So everything is fluid.
I love that. I just want to underscore a couple of things because they resonate so much for me. One is the kind of non-denominational sense. You're going to get this from Richard, and I probably filters through the work that I do because it's so much been granted permission by you. But this thing of it doesn't have to be dogmatic. It doesn't have to be a certain way. That your way of perceiving, being, sensing, feeling is just perfect for you, and that and then the asking and building relationship to how your own senses work or your higher self speaks. It harkens back to, conversations with Natalie Vartanian about the oracle practices, or even how we use the pendulum. There are those who would tell you the pendulum does this for yes and that for no. And I always like, your kind of premise, which is get to know your pendulum and open up a dialogue and say, how would you show me yes? And how would you show me no? And I kind of feel like that's a simplified version of what you're saying is get into dialogue, begin to learn about your own perceiving mechanisms, and then grow from there.
Well, yeah. And as a teacher, my job is not to teach you to be me.
Right.
Because I'm me and I'm still figuring that out. So, and I'm ahead of you by I've got a big start. So I need to teach in a neutral way that gives you the tool without telling you the outcome, without telling you what you're supposed to get from this, which honestly will drive some people nuts because it's more comfortable to be told, if you do this, this will happen, and now you know if you're doing it right. And you flourished in an environment where not being told what you were supposed to do, not everybody can do that because of confidence issues, permission, perception, right?
Absolutely.
And so if the exercise is useful, if it works, you don't need to be told it has to do this or that. You're supposed to experience it yourself and find out what it does for you. And then if it doesn't do something you like, pitch that out, because there's plenty more tools.
Absolutely. Well, we had talked about doing some tools live together in this group. Are you still open to go in there?
Well, sure.
Yeah? Okay.
I've worked with people by phone. That's about as far as I've got in things. But this will be fun. We can. Yeah.
Well, I think this group is going to have its own permission and perception of the idea of what roots means, and how maybe they've used roots in a yoga class, or they've heard someone say, put your roots down, or something like that. How would it feel to, as a group, talk about roots and then go through that little practice together?
This would be fine.
Okay.
But what I would actually rather do is do the exercise first and then talk about it. So we don't preload what I think roots do.
Got it.
Okay. And you're right. They're ubiquitous now. The concept of rooting is so old that it is everywhere. And, depending on where it went, it had different spins. So we're just going to try to take it back to kind of the first people who ever thought of ever doing this, and see what happens. And then, and yes, part of the reason why I like doing this in a room of actual people is because now a 45-minute conversation can ensue over how different flavors of roots we had. And it could work here, but not in the context today. But so let's just play with it first, and then I can kind of give you what I think.
Perfect. Yes, please.
Okie doke. So if you're already all sitting, if you're sitting where you can have a place with your feet flat on the floor, it works a little better, but that's not essential, okay? And then just close your eyes, take a nice deep breath, relax. You already put some things aside. Put the fact that we're in a video conference aside. So it's just you sitting there in your room, nothing special going on. Okay. And then let your attention go to the soles of your feet, okay? Just be aware of the soles of your feet. Be aware that your feet are contacting the floor. It doesn't matter if you have shoes on or not. You have feet. There's a floor there. There's earth under the floor. Okay, now relax the soles of your feet, and from the bottom of each foot, you're going to let roots grow down into the earth. Okay, you just relax and let them grow. Okay, it's as though they're already curled up inside your feet, already there, and if you relax and let go of them, they're going to uncurl and grow down into the earth. Okay, and then just relax and let them do what they do. Roots grow down, let them grow down deep, let them spread out wide. The more you relax, the better it works. It's not a matter of effort. You don't make the roots grow. You relax and let them grow. Okay? Lots of energy work has to do with letting things happen rather than making things happen. Okay, so let your roots grow. And when you have a root system under each foot, so that each leg can become like a trunk of a tree, so you're connected to the earth, just take a moment or two to notice how it feels. Okay, how it feels, how your body feels with roots down, what your mood is, how your breathing is, what you know, what you don't know, what you care about, what you don't care about. There's no particular thing that is supposed to happen here. It's just being in a place to be aware. Maybe this is an exercise you've done before. Maybe this is the first time you've ever had roots down. Maybe this is a new way of doing it. It doesn't matter, but there they are. Okay, so now with your roots down there, nice and relaxed, you can go ahead and open your eyes now. Closing your eyes makes it a little easier to focus down. But then you can open your eyes and notice what it's like to have your eyes open and look around at those roots down there. And you might notice that roots are a little harder to have with your eyes open. And that could be that you don't have the habit of having them. So it's something you actually have to put your attention on and do on purpose. Okay. Is that you? I saw a hand go up over there. Okay, well, that's pretty much everybody. we have energetic habits, even if we don't call them that. Okay, so my idea of roots. Now I'll throw my idea out here because I didn't want to do this before, but this is something you can teach yourself to do all day long. Okay, it took we did that 2 minutes tops, and you learned how to do that. Right? It's easy to learn. The trick is to remember that you know how to do it, and you can have roots down all day long, no matter what you're doing, no matter where you're going. Driving, swimming, doesn't matter. If you know where your feet are and you know where the earth is, you can have roots down. Okay? Why would anyone want to do that, though? Okay? What roots do? They give you an energetic connection to the earth. Sure. Okay, that's great. We have a physical body that is pretty much in present time. Okay? It's right here, right now, because you can touch it. There it is. Okay? There you go. But we also have this energetic being, a light body, whatever you want to call that part of yourself, which is unfettered by time and space. It could be anywhere, it could be any when, right? When you put roots down, you are choosing a when and a where for that energetic part of you to be, right here, right now, which happens to be where your physical body is, right here, right now. So it creates the opportunity to integrate, to be focused. So your energetic part is centered here in your physical part. Okay? The physical part is going to be here anyway. So it actually becomes the only place in the universe where we can be a complete being all at once. Okay? So it's very important to me for human beings to accept that they are physical, and that's actually okay. That is. And
I'll just jump in and weave this into the mission of the Mystic Society, which is we spend a lot of time talking about manifestation, about bringing things into form, about what it means to actually bring our vision and our dreams into our reality. And a lot of that great visioning and magic weaving happens in the ethers. But we can feel very blocked to actually creating or receiving if we aren't familiar with how to come back into the body, put roots down right here, right now, and allow it to then flow into the here and now.
Exactly. And I will just spin off of you a little bit that you said bring it back to the here and now. I say don't go to the when and where to get that information. Bring it here.
Here, yes.
Here. The physical body is here anywhere. So anywhere else you go to get information, a fraction of you is going there. Because part of you is here anyway. And for most people, when they get into this, they find that they're actually very fractured anyway, that they are off getting this information, but they're also getting that information, and they're still doing something from 20 years ago, and they're worried about what's going to happen 20 years from now. That's what our energetic body can do. It can go this way. And the physical body is sitting here going, what?
Yeah, right.
There should be somebody in here, and there's not. Okay?
Yeah.
And we all have those moments where we jump in the car to go to the post office, and we end up at work, and we go, wait a minute. Okay, that's a clear sign that part of you went to the post office, and the rest of you was running on autopilot because we weren't there. Okay? And autopilot is one of the very cool things humans can do. And in the martial arts world, we train to get a lot of things to do that autopilot thing. So something comes in, we do something. Okay? But that's not the way you want to go through life. You don't want to go through life on autopilot. You want to go through life as this complete being, exercising your choices and all this great manifestation, but you don't want to happen 23 billion years from now. You want to happen it's right here, right now. So create it right here, right now.
Totally.
So it's a different spin a little bit.
And you can see now why the physical healing part becomes so important, why things like merging heaven and earth are so important, because a lot of us, myself included, anyone who's experienced trauma or illness or any reasons why it might be uncomfortable to be in the physical body, we often get really, really versed at just staying out of it. And so once you start to bring that back in and spend more and more of that time in here and then out and bringing information down and through as opposed to going out to get it, all of a sudden you find you might have some work to do here in the body.
And, you know, and it's not a matter of right or wrong.
Right.
It's a matter of choice. And if you're in a very uncomfortable situation, it is totally natural that part of you at least would step out of that and say, I need to take a break. And we're actually wired to do that, obviously. We'll go unconscious if something is stressful enough, and we'll separate. Okay, but not all of life is that extreme. And we have taught ourselves that when things get stressful, let's just check out. But we leave the physical body there to absorb all of that stress, which stress is like the number one thing in America, right? It's tied to illness like crazy. Yeah. And I believe it's because we spend too much time leaving the body holding the bag while the rest of us step out where it's comfortable. When you make the conscious choice that, no, whatever's going on, I'm going to deal with it as a whole person. Yeah. I'm going to put more roots down, and I'm going to be even more here, and I'm going to deal with this as a whole person. And then if I decide to leave, I'm going to go and I'm going to take the body with me, which is a much bigger statement, right? It's easy to sneak out and leave the body kind of sitting nodding at the meeting that you don't want to be in, right? Because everybody thinks, yeah, he's there. Yeah. No, but if I go, you know what, this is not my life, and I take the body with, everybody knows I did that. And
you just created real change in your life. Yeah.
Sure did. Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
So, yeah, are there going to be consequences from making a choice that strong?
Yeah.
Gotcha. But that's why you make a choice that strong.
Yeah.
To create the wheel of consequence and opportunity and choice that comes. Okay.
I love that. Well, we had hoped to go through at least one more practice, and I think we should see if we have time towards the end. But I want to make sure that we let people know kind of about some of what's coming up, and also maybe take some questions, because I'm guessing people have some good questions out there. First, I just want to say there's three ways that you can find Richard and work with Richard. One, and this is probably my favorite one, you can come live here on the Central Coast with me.
Yes, I like that the best.
Because Richard, as I mentioned, runs the Energetic Art Center, and he runs an amazing year-long program in person in groups that is huge. Elena's coming, and Elena also has experience working with Richard in person, because Richard joined us gratefully at the Mastery Retreat.
That was very fun.
Yeah, which was really fun. We got to do energetic work out on a bluff in Los Osos, looking out on, it's amazing. So that's one way that you can work with him. He also takes limited one-on-one clients via phone. And I know Lisa says I'm thinking about it. I know she's serious, actually. Limited opportunity to work with Richard doing private healing and energy work one-on-one by phone, and he has offered a very generous mystic rate for that, and so I will be sure to share that in the email with the recording, and also in the Mystic Society. And then the third way is brand new and really exciting, which is Richard has agreed to experiment in bringing his work into an online form. We're going to take a small number of people, and we're going to do a short 4-week energy course. And so I wanted to make sure that you guys know that we'll be sharing the link, and want to be able to answer any questions about it. But I did want to also offer the incentive that if we have 5 people sign up, each of those 5 people, we'll take more than 5 people, each of those 5 people will have the option of a free private session with either Richard or I, whomever you would like to work with. So I wanted everyone to know about that. And again, I'll be sharing the links and happy to answer more questions about that 4-week course. But I want to see if we have any questions that we want to answer in general about energetics. And then if we have time, we might even be able to do one more practice here today, if that sounds good. Let's see. Does anybody want to unmute themselves if they have a question, or raise your hand and I can? Okay, Fran, I can unmute you. Let's see if I can move this down so I can unmute you. There we go. Let's see, it's not letting me do it that way. Just one sec, Fran. Oh, you're ready to go, Fran. Can we hear you? Oh, no, now you're muted again.
Okay, how about that?
We gotcha. Perfect. I think we were both doing it at the same time.
Okay. I had this image come to me when you were saying you're in a meeting. It's it's not connecting. You're not connecting, but you have to be there. It's your gig. You have to use your job, and you go someplace else. But then I had the image come to me. What if I got grounded and really, without telling anybody or making anybody do anything my way, but just doing it myself energetically, my sense is, this is really bubbling in me strong, that it's not like I'm trying to take control over the situation, but if I got grounded and then asked the room to be grounded and asked the other people to be grounded if they were willing to do it energetically, not talking to anybody, it just could happen. A little shift maybe would occur. Would it be too crazy to imagine that that the whole thing would start to some outcome, just a momentary jolt would happen, and things, not that I would need to be in control of it, but something would open up that was the truth that needed to be or wanted to be spoken at that point, for not just me because I'm bored, but everybody, so that we all get the aha.
I cannot tell you it will happen, of course, but it certainly won't happen if you sit there an empty sack with the best part of you in the Bahamas somewhere at a table full of empty sacks. So you're exactly right. Once you create that presence, it may be contagious. And you may be the one that says the thing that gets everybody back from wherever they went and went, wait, what? And the meeting takes off. And this is the point, that is so important. That simple little exercise of putting roots down, it makes things exactly like that possible. That once you show up, was it Woody Allen, I think, that 98% of any job is showing up?
Yeah. Well,
you're showing up when you do that. And one person at the table who's actually there could make all the difference. Or you will, the example I used is you will go, no, this is not where I need to be making a difference. I need to be making a difference over there in that other room.
Right.
And you go. The choices are up to you, but you can't make them if you're not there.
Absolutely. And I can certainly attest to those kinds of shifts happening, Fran. I'm a chronic outspoken speaker, and it turns out you actually have to be present in the room and have roots down in order to speak the unspokens. And it can create exactly the kind of jolt and awareness shifts that you're describing. And all of those empty sacks around you also come back into the moment and into the body. And that's the place from which real good co-creative juicy work is done, is when we're all actually showing up and here.
For sure. And the world, your interaction with the world is different when you are more present. And the way that world interacts with you is more present. Going to the DMV is almost never a very fun thing. But you go there as a person, complete, focused, because if there's ever a place to disconnect, it's the DMV. But no, get all there, do your business, and you'll be amazed at the competence that will suddenly come from the person on the other side of the counter, because they're now dealing with somebody who's actually there. And you're talking to them. You're not talking into the air. So it really changes interpersonal interactions tremendously, even if just one of the people involved, us, do that.
I remember having a huge epiphany. I'm not a big basketball fan, but watching a basketball player that people would talk about who was always in the zone. Like that guy could get in the zone and he could make these incredible shots. And I watched him. This was after training with Richard for a while. And I could see that what that meant was not just that he was really good at what he was doing and he was in this thing that I thought of as this etheric flow, but he had crazy deep roots and he was able to be in his body and do all of those things simultaneously. That's what being in the zone actually was. Anybody else have a question? Thank you, Fran, so much for bringing that in. So great. No other question? Anyone raise their hand? Shar is my question asker. Shar, no question?
That's okay.
Can she unmute us? Were you wanting to?
That was more a thoughtful gesture. I mean, it's not really a question. I was just pondering more about what it is that makes us so much in the habit of being unrooted or ungrounded. But I think Richard already spoke to that. It's different kinds of stress, suffering, or disconnection. I don't know if he wants to say any more about that.
Yeah.
We generally have a lot of help to get that way. Society in general has kind of agreed to work on a lower common denominator level. So being a little disconnected is actually the norm. And, you know, when you're raised in the family, maybe when you were a little too present. So you were asked to turn the voltage down a little bit. And there's all kinds of things can contribute to it. But it's very easy. Energetic things are actually instant and simple. It's setting up the opportunity for it to occur that sometimes takes a while. So just knowing that you now know how to put roots down, you may not do that every day, all day, but there may be a day when you go, wait a minute, I know how to do this thing. And you do it, and there it goes. It works. So you had it when you needed it. Doing it every 24/7. Well, that's my spin on it, and that's for me. And it works great, believe me. But you guys get to decide how to use the tricks, the tools.
So, unless we have another question, what do you think? We have 4 minutes. Do you think we could do a little intro to center of the head in 4 minutes? Which it might be a great way to separate our minds. We'll each be holding the intention of separating from the collective as we claim our own internal space. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. These are actually the first two things I teach in class are these two skills because they are simple and yet so big in their import. And this one, the center of the head, is actually another one that's really ancient. Well, we'll just, like I said, we'll do it, and then maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe we won't. Okay. All right. So just once again, close your eyes, okay? And just take a nice breath, relax. Check and see if your roots are still there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And if they are, that's great. And if they aren't, that's great, because now you can grow new ones. Okay? So you never spend 1 second kicking yourself for having your roots going away. You congratulate yourself for having the opportunity to grow new ones. So either way, you end up with nice roots down so that you are more focused. You have the opportunity to be more here. Okay, and then where here would we like to center? Okay, the physical body is a very busy place. There's always things going on. Okay, there's thoughts going on. There's nerve impulses going on. There's chemical reactions going on by the billions every second. Okay, so it is very distracting, but it is us. So we'd like to find a place to center our attention in the body, but out of all the noise. And as it turns out, structurally, there is a place for that. Okay, so if you imagine a line that goes through your head from the top of each ear, okay, and I'm actually putting my fingers up there, so if you look at me, you'll see what I'm talking about. But a line that goes through the head this way, and then a line that goes from the center of the forehead straight through to the back. Okay? So imagine those two lines. And then be aware of where those lines intersect inside your head. Okay? We're calling that intersection the center of the head. And anatomically, there actually is a little hollow there in your brain where there's nothing going on. Okay? That's about where that is. So be aware of that intersection. Be aware of the center of your head. And then take the part of you that is aware and put it into the center of your head. Be in the center of your head and be aware. Okay? Notice what that is like. Okay? And you might need to shop around a little bit until you find the center of the head. Usually the light goes on or there's a ding. You know when you find it. Okay. Center of the head is unique place in the body, because you're in the body, but you're not in any particular part. You're in that little hollow. And from the center of your head, you can be aware of the roots down from your feet easily. And you don't have to go down into your feet to find out. You can feel it from the center of your head. You can know it from the center of your head. You can see from the center of your head. Okay? If you get a little bit of a spin, you're a little too far forward, and you're getting into your sixth chakra, so you want to move back a little bit. You don't want to actually sit in the chakra. Find the space behind the chakra. Okay? It takes a little shopping. Okay? When you find the center of your head, you're in your body, but you're not in any particular place in your body. You're not in any particular chakra. So you can be aware of your whole body or each part. You can be aware of all your chakras or each chakra. Okay. And from the center of your head, you can be aware of what's going on outside of your body. Okay? There's always millions of things outside of our body that pull us from place to place, from time to time. When you're in the center of your head, you can be aware of all those things, but you're not in all those things. Okay? So once again, take a nice breath from the center of your head and kind of notice where that breath goes. Okay? And then from the center of your head, you can open your eyes and stay in the center of your head and see what it's like to look out from there. Okay, everybody doing okay? Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, that center of the head, again, that only took us a couple of minutes to get there and to play with that. But that's something, again, now that you know where it is, you can go there anytime you want. And in fact, you can be there all the time. Okay? So we have words like being centered, and we have words about a compassionate attachment. This is what we're talking about. This is actually the skill to learn to do that. When you're in the center of your head, you can see, you can know, you can feel, you can use all of your senses, you can express and experience, but you are here. You're not there. You're not in these things. So that's what gives you that compassionate detachment. If you're doing healing work, working from here rather than climbing in. If you want to see and you want to do reading, you see from here. You don't climb into the other person. So it helps you stay distinct and more focused. Remember, so using the roots and the center of the head together, you have the opportunity to be the most focused, and then you're centered in the most aware place there is. Okay, so these two skills work together in an unbelievably powerful way. It becomes very interesting. And once you get it, as Lindsay said, she could see when the basketball player was in the zone. She could see him get there and lock up and everything sync together. You'll start to notice people when they're in the center of their head and when they're not.
Yeah. And I mean, you hear me talking in Mystic Society about, you know, this money, magic, meaning thing, and all these tools to support that. And so I hope that in this conversation about energetics, you see how important tools as simple as these are for actually bringing those things into form. We talk so much about blocks or what's, you know, stepping into our power or claiming our voice. And it can start to become this little dance where we're dancing between our own chakras and ungrounding ourselves in the very doing, like going up and down an elevator, pushing the buttons willy-nilly. It's incredibly powerful to claim the space in the center of your head and have full access to, as Richard said, the roots without actually having to go down, and heaven without actually having to leave, and expressing yourself and receiving information and perceiving through all of those chakras in alignment at the same time. Anything else you want to add, Richard, before we wrap up here?
It was, I guess if there's a point to be made, it's that these simple little skills, there's so many of us that that come together here in the Mystic Society who have, it's not a lack of information, it's not a lack of sensitivity, it's not a lack of anything except maybe a context and a structure. So whether it's, of course I think my tools are the best ones, but you know I'm kidding when I say that. It doesn't matter what tools you get, but it's important to get some. And to have something that's foundational and a structure that you can hang this information on so that it makes sense to you and is something you can work with. And whether you apply that to business or apply that to anything, life is what you really are applying it to. Here it is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I just want to underscore that as well. Just the ability to get comfortable with how your own body works, your own intuitive systems work, getting the tools to help support you in building that relationship. And then from there, it's really limitless how you can begin to apply those gifts and those skills out to align yourself to your purpose and your path. So, Richard, how'd we do? I know this was your first virtual class. I hope you felt we were good students.
Well, the thing that is most difficult for me is that there's all of these faces here that I want to look at, and I know that if I want to look at your face, I have to look at the silly dot up here, and I'm looking at everybody's face at the same time. But that doesn't let me see you.
Right.
So if I look like my eyes are going all over the place, because they are. It's a little distracting, but it's fun this way.
Yes. Well, it was really a treat to have you here, and I'm so grateful for your time today. I'm grateful for everybody who came. I'm super excited to embark on this experiment together of doing this 4-week class. I'm hoping Candace will put a link with a little bit more information about that class in the chat, and then as I mentioned, I'll also be sending it out with the recording as well. We would love to hear from you, any questions or thoughts you have. And I guess we'll just go forward and separate our minds now. And I just wish you all the best. We're both out here too. So if questions arise or we stirred anything up, let us know. And we're happy to answer them. And just so grateful to see you all today. I love you all. And Claire, I love you in the dark out there. My dear friend, my sweet friend in the dark. Hello, bye. Good to see you, Robin. Good to see everybody. Nice to hear your voices. Thanks for coming.
Namaste.
Friend Sarah, thank you. Tara, everybody. Elena, thank you. Candace, thank you for your support. I love you all.